afternoon, classmate. Good afternoon po, sir. So we are the group C. So our topic for today is all about scene of the crime operations. So scene of the crime operations. So take note po, classmate. The word scene came from the Latin word scena, scenes, which means the place where an incident occurs or happen. So classmate, take note din po. The word crime came from the Latin word crimen, which means accusation. Scene of the crime operation, SOCO, is a forensic procedure performed by trained personnel of the PNP Crime Laboratory through scientific methods of investigations for the purpose of preserving the crime scenes, gathering informations, documentations, collections, and examination of all physical evidence. So in this slide, so it means that the scene of the crime operation group is a PNP personnel trained in laboratory investigations in the purpose of preserving, gathering, documentations, collections, and examinations of all physical evidence. Some of the evidence that can be found in the crime scene is what we call corpus delicti. So corpus delicti is the Latin word for the body of the crime. It is the legal term used to describe physical or material evidence used in the commission of the crime. So these pictures also symbolize the SOCO personnel here in the Philippines. So when you see this kind of personnel, the first idea and information that I came up in myself is there is a certain events that was happened, such as like robbery and bypass operation. Increased awareness and increasing need of establishing facts through scientific means in the Philippines paved the way for the establishments of the SOCO unit in 1995 under PNP Crime Laboratory. So ibig sabihin po, in 1995, the SOCO unit was established under the PNP Crime Laboratory to increase their awareness and to increase the establishing facts through the use of scientific method, or also known so it means po, it is a step-by-step process investigations. By virtue of Republic Act 6975 as amended by Republic Act 8551, the Philippine National Police was created and bestowed with both the power and authority to conduct investigations, effect arrests, and file cases for prosecutions involving both civil and criminal acts within Philippine jurisdiction. In reference to conduct of the investigation according to the PNP from the foregoing, the following attributes of SOCO are elaborated in this context and substances. A SOCO team was appropriately organized to meet the core missions of the Crime Laboratory, which is a national operating support unit of the PNP by virtue of NAPOLCOM Resolution Nr. 96058 in 1996. So, ibig sabihin po, the Philippine National Police was created by the virtue of Department of Interior and Local Government Act of 1990 or the Republic Act 6975 enacted on December 13, 1990, and it was amended by the Philippine National Police Reform and Reorganization Act of 1998 or the Republic Act 8551 enacted on February 25, 1998. But the PNP shall not have the power and authority to conduct investigations while the SOCO team is organized by the virtue of NAPOLCOM Resolution Nr. 96058 in 1996. The function of which is to primarily help or assist government investigating units and agencies in the conduct of inquiries perfunctory to the interest of the state and its constituents by collecting, handling, and examining pieces of physical evidence which are anchored in the missions of providing technical support services on the same capacity. So it means the functions of SOCO is to help and assist the government investigating units by examining and collecting physical evidence to solve certain issues and problems, delicate and meticulous situations. So for example, murder, arsons, and homicide. The concept of a SOCO team may have burned out of the need for a switch and true investigation using the physical evidence to support a hypothesis, theory, or suppositions from the investigation viewpoint. So in this slide, it means the physical evidence is the important and crucial part in hypothesis. The SOCO mission. The scene of the crime operations shall provide forensic expertise to criminal investigations by preserving, securing, and if need be by scientifically reconstructing the crime scenes for the collections, documentations, and forensic examinations of all collected physical evidence with the end in view of establishing facts relative to a criminal incident. The proper scene of operations is based on scientific methods of investigation geared toward the identification and successful prosecutions of the responsible person. So it means the mission of SOCO, the mission of the scene of the crime operation is the personnel in terms of forensic expertise to preserve, examine, and collect the physical evidence to solve the certain and meticulous crime incidents and for the purpose of court trial. So class, take note po the word investigation came from the Latin word investigare or investigatus, which means to track, trace, or to probe. So class, take note din po. The word investigation came from the Latin word vestigium, which means footprint. For me, class, based on my own perceptions, when we talk about the missions of the SOCO here in the Philippines, the mission of SOCO may include the process of criminal investigations involves the systematic process of identifying, collecting, preserving, presenting, and evaluating evidence. Janken, ikaw na po. Janken.
Good morning, classmates. Now, let us talk with the general objectives of scene of the crime operation. The first one. Next, buddy. To conduct forensic investigation through the methodological means of collection, examination, preservation, and presentation of all evidence for final disposition of criminal cases, which means processing evidence that are related or can use in criminal cases. Second, to enable the police investigating line units to expeditiously identify and arrest the criminal perpetrators through the collected and examined physical evidence. As a scene of the crime officer, they provide sufficient evidence to identify and arrest the perpetrators. Third, to establish the facts before the competent court based on collected and examined physical evidence. Ensure that all evidence provided are reliable and based on facts. 4. To strictly adhere to protocols governing forensic science. These are some example of protocols. Maintain the integrity of the evidence. Clear and complete documentation. 5th, to progressively acquire new technology and human skill to ensure that the operational capabilities should consistent with continuous and evolving threats to public safety. We need to use modern machine to identify the perpetrators, because there are some evidence that cannot seen by our naked eye. What are those? For example, fingerprints, DNA tests. To see a fingerprints, we need to use microscope, and for the DNA, we use DNA sequencing machine. Next, buddy.
So, shall we proceed to the classification of cases for crime laboratory assistance? First, paraffin examinations of suspect or victim of shooting incidents that are confined in hospital. So it means when shooting incidents happen, the suspect is responsible and the victim also to conduct a paraffin examination to determine the possible culprit. So class, take note po, the word culprits, it refers to a person who committed a crime, or in short, it is a suspect. So class, take note din po, the word victim, it is a forgotten person in criminal justice system. Second, conduct of qualitative or quantitative examination of fake products in others government of private laboratories in cases of unfair trade competitions. So ibig sabihin po, in cases of unfair trade competitions, the SOCO officers is responsible to conduct a qualitative or quantitative examination. Third, collections of urine samples for drug tests. So it means po, the crime laboratory assistants of SOCO may conduct a drug test such as urine examinations to determine if a person is positive or negative in taking or using legal or illegal drugs. 4. Collections of paint fragments, fibers, and glass fractures at the crime scene in cases of vehicular accidents. So yan, the SOCO officers also may collect glass fractures, point fragments, and fibers in cases of vehicular accidents to support the investigation using physical evidence. Yes, probably. The physical evidence is the very important information in solving cases like the vehicular accidents. 5. Collections of ashes and debris in relation to arson cases. When arson incidents happened, the SOCO team or SOCO officers is responsible to collect ashes and debris for the purpose of investigations. So class, take note po, arson is the willful and malicious setting to fire, such as burning property. Number 6, bullet trajectory examinations of motor vehicles at the crime scene. So it means it is a examinations of motor vehicle in relation to bullet trajectory. So remember po class, bullet trajectory is the path of flight it follow from being fired to reaching its target. Marco 7. Macro-etching examinations of stranded or defective motor vehicle at the crime scenes or in the compound of the requesting party. Ibig sabihin po, it is the examinations of defective vehicle using macro-etching examinations for the purpose of investigation. 8. Conduct of autopsy at the PNP accredited funeral parlors. The SOCO officers or SOCO team may conduct a autopsy to the funerals accredited parlors of the PNP. 9. Exhumations of cadavers to determine the cause of death. So it means it is important to make exhumations of human cadavers to determine and to know the cause of death of the victim. So class, take note po. The word cadavers, it refers to a corpse or dead human body of a person. So 10. Conduct of document examinations of fingerprints examinations in the place of requesting unit. So it means class, fingerprint examinations responsible to conduct in a requesting unit for the purpose of document examination. 11. Photographing of evidence related to fingerprints or documents examination cases and other forensic fields where the physical evidence could not be removed or brought up of the office. So it means when the evidence cannot brought up to the office, the SOCO team may use cameras or exclusive cell phones for documentations of evidence to get informations and some evidences. Class, take note po. So the word photography. So the word photography, the birthplace of photography is 1839. So the word photography came by John F.W. Herschel. 12. Lifting of latent prints in relation to qualified sample theft cases and robbery. Theft cases and robbery may be examined in lifting of latent prints. 13. Polygraph examinations of suspect in the office of the investigations if the name of the suspect is highly confidential. So it means, class, when the culprit or suspect is responsible to polygraph examinations, the suspect also shall undergo to the office of the investigator. 14. Withdrawal of fired bullet embedded in the wall of a car or a building found at the crime scene after the crime scene's processing. So ibig sabihin po, after the crime scene's incidents, the withdrawal of field bullet embedded in the wall of a car is being and examined by the SOCO officers. 15. Bringing of bulky evidence in court. So it means bulky evidence is the important evidence that we need to bring in court. So class, some of the examples of the bulky evidence, dito na pumapasok yung corpus delicti or yung body of the crime. So yung corpus delicti, nire-represent po niya yung material na ginamit in the commission of crime. 16. Bringing of important office communications to other private or government offices. So as a SOCO officers, communication to private or government offices is important to bring when we need to conduct investigations. Hello po. Jason Gini. Classmate, si Kano.
Sige. Mandatory requirements. There should be a formal or written request for field laboratory work duly endorsed by the Chief of Police that will be submitted to the crime laboratory prior to dispatch of the laboratory personnel. So it means, class, the formal or written request is endorsed by the Chief of Police and they submitted to the crime laboratory prior to the laboratory personnel. Dapat mayroong formal o nakasulat na kahilingan para sa field laboratory na dapat pangunahan at itaguyod ng pinuno ng pulisya na isubmit o isumite sa crime laboratory bago ipadala ang mga tauhan sa isang laboratory. Next. A maximum of 2 laboratories specialist technician and a photographer will be dispatched to attend the field of laboratory work cases. So it means also technician or specialist and photographer is a maximum to laboratory officer to be dispatched to attend in the field of laboratory work cases. May maximum na hanggang 2 specialist technician na laboratory at isang photographer lamang ang maaaring ipadala upang maibistagan o dumalo sa kaso sa laboratory. Next. The SOCO van shall not be dispatched if the request is only field laboratory work. Another motor vehicle will be used for the purpose. In this slide, they mention that the SOCO van cannot be dispatched when the request for the field of laboratory work and the other purpose is to use motor vehicle. Ang SOCO van o sasakyan ng SOCO ay hindi maaaring maipadala kung ang request ay gawaing pang laboratory lamang. Isa pang sasakyan na motor ang gagamitin upang gamitin para sa kanyang purpose. Next.
Powers and functions of SOCO. Ana, ikaw na, Ana.
Next. attend to all cases brought to its attention by various requesting unit, higher headquarters, and the director. Yan nga, kailangan bigyan ng pansin yun. Kapag tinawag yung attention ng SOCO, dapat asikasuhin nila agad yun. Hindi pwede yung sin-zone ka lang, pa-chill-chill ka lang, ganun. Number 2, perform a daily crime scene operation on a 24 hours basis. So it means in 24 hours, we need to conduct a crime scene investigation to a place where a crime is committed to preserve the possible evidence and to avoid any contamination that can affect the evidence in a crime scene. Next. Segregates collected piece of evidence from the crime scene and submit them for examination to the technical division, responsible for its examination together with a written request duly signed by the SOCO team leader. Sila yung mga nagsasubmit kung kailangan ba ng examination doon mismo sa technical division. Depende yun kung fingerprint or ballistic o kung anong klaseng technical examination yung kailangan gawin regarding dun sa particular na case. Next. Maintain records for their operation and other activities. So it means the SOCO personnel is responsible to keep the records of their operation and activities for the purpose of securing the information or evidence in a crime committed and also for the purpose in a court trial. Number 5, monitor the status of the case which they referred to the technical division for proper evaluation or examination. Kailangan dapat minomonitor pa rin yung kalagayan ng mga cases kasi hindi porket nakakolekt ka na ng mga evidence tapos na yung work mo, kailangan tuloy-tuloy pa rin yun hanggat walang judgment, hanggat hindi mo ito na itatransmit dun sa court, dapat intindihin kasi nga magiging part yun ng delay ng mga kaso. Pa-next po. Number 6, consolidates or examination reports coming from technical division which conduct the requested examination for transmittal to the requesting units. Yun nga, kailangan pagsamasamahin na lahat ng report na dapat pagsamasamahin mo na yan para i-transmit mo dun sa tamang tao. Yan lang po.
Hello, buddy. Giancarlo, classmates, ikaw na po. Classmates, Giancarlo, ikaw na po.
Wala siya. Nasa hospital daw.
Functions of SOCO. It shall determine and delineate the crime scenes. So first, so it means class, when the SOCO is arriving at the crime scene, so they are also responsible to determine and delineate the crime scenes for the purpose of the investigations or looking for the physical evidence that can be found at the crime scenes. Second, it shall preserve and ensure the protections of the crime scenes. Yes, it is very important to preserve and to protect the crime scenes. Why? Because it is important to protect us, to maintain and to preserve the possible evidence that can be found in the crime scenes for the purpose of court trial. Third, it shall conduct methodical search for all available evidence in the crime scenes. So it means when the SOCO is arriving at the crime scenes, so they first also looking for the evidence that can be found at the crime scenes. So some of the evidence that can be found in the crime scenes are the corpus delicti or the materials that can be used in the commissions of the crime. 4, it shall methodically document the crime scenes. So class, it means that the SOCO officers is responsible to document the informations that can be seen at the crime scenes, whether it is meticulous when the crime is committed. 5. It shall methodically collect and transport all available physical evidence for the crime scenes to the PNP Crime Laboratory for the purpose of appropriate forensics examinations. So it means, class, it shall present before any competent courts its findings. Yes, it is very important to have to present the informations or physical evidence to a court before its trial. Hello po, classmates. Crystal, ikaw na po, SOCO personnel. Hello po. Crystal, ikaw na po.
Buddy, wala si Crystal.
SOCO personnel. First, Chief, scene of crime operations. His office is based at the national headquarters, Camp Crame, Quezon City. He shall have an overall directions and control of all of the activities of all SOCO personnel, both at the headquarters, crime laboratory, and the 5 district crime laboratories offices. So yan class. Ibig sabihin, the chief scene of crime operations is the overall who give directions and controls of the activities performed by all SOCO personnel. So the chief of scene of the crime operations is located at national headquarters at Camp Crame, Quezon City. So kung nakapunta na po yung sa Quezon City, bale yung Camp Aguinaldo at Camp Crame is magkalapit lang po. Second, SOCO officer, who will maintain the SOCO reports, records, and equipment of headquarters and district's crime laboratory offices that will assist the chief of the scene of the crime operations. The headquarters crime laboratory, including its district's offices, must organize their own SOCO team to attend to requests for SOCO assistance on a 24-hour basis. So it means the SOCO officer is responsible to maintain the reports, record, and equipments of the district crime laboratory and headquarters offices. Yes, it is also very, very important to have a district officers to provide assistance to the people who need SOCO assistance on 24-hour basis. Buddy, Aram, ikaw na. Classmates.
Composition of scene of the crime operation team. Sa next body. Team leader. Assume control, ensure safety of personnel and security at scene. Ensure personnel use appropriate protective equipment and follow standard recommendations to protect them from any health hazard which might be presented by blood or any other human body fluid. Yung team leader, ito yung nagli-lead sa pag-control at siya yung nagtitiyak sa mga kaligtasan ng mga tauhan at seguridad sa pinangyarihan ng krimen. To ensure personnel protect them from any health hazard, kailangan na gumamit sila ng mga appropriate protective equipment at sundin yung mga standard recommendation para maprotektahan sila sa mga anumang panganib sa kalusugan na maaaring idulot ng mga blood or human body fluid. Next body. Conduct initial walkthrough for purposes of making a preliminary survey, evaluating potential evidence, and preparing a narrative description. ito yung magsasagawa ka ng unang preliminary survey para suriin yung mga potential evidence at paghahanda sa narrative description. Determine search patterns and make appropriate assignments for teams. Ito naman yung pagtukoy sa mga pattern, sa mga nahanap na pattern, at magbibigay ka sa isa sa mga member ng assignment para sa mga search pattern na ito. Next. Designate command post location and ensure exchange of information between search and investigative personnel. Ito naman yung italaga ang lokasyon at tiyakin ang pagpapalitan ng impormasyon sa pagitan ng paghahanap at mga tauhang nag-iimbestiga. Coordinate with other law enforcement agencies and make sure a cooperative spirit is maintained. Kailangan makipag-ugnayan sa iba pang mga ahensya na nagpapatupad ng batas at dapat tiyakin na ang cooperative spirit. Next. Ensure that sufficient supplies and equipment are available for personnel. Dapat tiyaking may magagamit na sapat na supply at equipment yung mga personnel. Dapat sa pag-iimbestiga nila, meron silang mga sapat na kagamitan para sa pag-iimbestiga sa crime scene. Control access to the scene and designate an individual to log everyone into the scene. Dapat sa crime scene, di ba, mahigpit na ipinagbabawal yung pagpasok sa yung cross line, yung harang. Kailangan kontrolado yung mga taong pumapasok doon at dapat na merong isang individual na naglalag ng mga taong pumapasok sa crime scene. Continuously re-evaluate efficiency of search during entire course of operation. Patuloy na suriin muli ang kahusayan ng paghahanap sa buong kurso ng operasyon. Release the scene after a final survey and inventory of the evidence has been done. Next, body. Photographer and photographic log recorder. Photograph entire area before it is entered. Kailangan bago mo pasukin yung crime scene, kailangan mo munang kuhanan ito ng litrato. Photograph victims, crowd, and vehicles. Photograph entire scene with overall medium and close-up coverage using measurement scale when appropriate. Kailangan kuhanan ng mabuti yung victim, yung crowd, tsaka yung mga sasakyan. At kailangan din ang pagkuha ng litrato ay may pagkuha ng litrato sa buong crime scene ay may medium close-up coverage. Next, body. Photograph major evidence items before they are moved. Coordinate these efforts with sketch preparer, evidence recorder, and evidence recovery personnel. Sabi dito, kuhanan ng litrato yung mga matitibay na ebidensyang makukuha bago galawin yung mga ebidensya na yon. At dapat makipag-coordinate sa sketch preparer, evidence recorder, and evidence recovery personnel. Photograph all latent fingerprints and other impression evidence before lifting and casting are accomplished. Prepare photographic log and photographic sketch. Next, body. Sketch prepare. Diagram immediate area of scene and orient diagram with sketch. Set forth major items of evidence on sketch. Designate and label areas to be searched and advise team leader and all other search members of nomenclature for designated areas. Kailangan daw yung sketch prepare dapat dinedesignate yung bawat label ng area kung saan nakita yung mga evidence. Next. Obtain appropriate assistance for taking measurements and double-check measure. Kailangan sa pagkuha ng mga measure ng mga ebidensya ay kailangan mo rin kumuha ng tulong sa pagkuha ng mga sukat ng mga ebidensya at i-double check yung measurements nito kung tama ba or what. Ensure necessary administrative information such as scale disclaimer is recorded on sketch. Next. Evidence recorder custodian. Have significant evidence photographed before collection. Yun nga, kailangan may significant evidence photograph ka bago mo kolektahin yung mga evidence na makukuha mo sa crime scene. Describe evidence and its location on appropriate bag or envelope. Yung mga makukuha na evidence for example yung bala ng barel, yung mga knife, ganun, yung mga nagamit na weapon sa crime scene. Dapat daw ilagay siya sa appropriate bag or envelope. Kadalasan ang pinaglalagyan ng mga SOCO team yung ziplock ba yun? Yung ziplock, ganun. Sign and date evidence container, maintain chain of custody. Yun, yung pinaglagyan ng mga evidence, yung evidence container, kailangan daw may sign at may date yun. Next. Appropriately collect and package evidence to maximize evidence integrity. Yung mga na-collect na evidence, kailangan daw i-maximize yung integrity nito. Hindi mo, yung mga nakukuha kasing mga evidence is confidential siya. Hindi siya pwede ipakita or ipahawak sa kung kani-kanino. Ganun. Maintain evidence log. Use appropriate protective equipment and methods when dealing with potentially infective evidence. Yun nga, kailangan mo kapag ka nagkakanda ka ng investigation, kailangan may suot kang gloves or anumang equipment na kailangan protektado yung member ng SOCO team. Protektado sa mga anumang infective katulad ng blood. Next. Specialist. It is sometimes necessary to bring in expertise from an outside agency. The field of forensic science is so broad today that no agency will have every form of specialty service available from among its ranks. Typically, specialists are brought in from industry, the academic community, private scientific laboratories, and similar concerns. Sa mga crime scene, kapag ka nag-iimbestiga, minsan kinakailangan mo din talaga ng mga specialist na makakatulong para makakuha ng mas matibay na ebidensya. Next, Ari. When dealing with outside specialists, some pertinent aspects to consider are the competence and reliability of the specialist. Kailangan yung specialist na kukunin mo competent at maaasahan mo siya sa gagawin yung pag-iimbestiga. The ability of the specialist to work at a scene within law enforcement guidelines. Yung kakayahan ng specialist na magtrabaho sa isang crime scene within law enforcement guidelines. Siyempre, may guidelines yung SOCO team kung ano ba yung mga dapat or hindi. The role of the specialist in presenting expert testimony in court. Yun nga, yung role ng specialist is yung i-present niya yung katotohanan sa korte. Next. Specialists should be identified before they are needed in actual case. A current list should be maintained if possible. The agency should meet with the individuals to determine the best manner to jointly conduct search, planning, operations, and follow-up. Yun nga, sabi dito, specialists should be identified before they are needed in actual case. Kailangan bago sila mag-conduct ng pag-iimbestiga, kailangan meron silang plano kung paano yung gagawin nila, kung ano yung dapat para sa gagawin nilang pag-iimbestiga. Next. The following list provides examples of specialty assistance to be considered. It is not meant to be completely inclusive. Una, yung anthropologist. Minsan kailangan din kasi sila yung, di ba anthropologist, sila yung nag-aaral sa mga aspect ng human. Tapos, blood pattern analyst. Sila naman yung nag-aaral kung yung sa makukuha nilang blood pattern, pinag-aaralan nila kung paano ba kung paano ba napunta doon yung dugo, kung galing ba sa taas or tumalsik ba yung dugo or kung sa lapag lang tapos kumalat, ganun. Yung bomb technician naman, sila yung mga expert sa mga bomba na kunwari sa crime scene may bomba tapos hindi pa may yung oras niya tuloy-tuloy pa rin. Sila yung yung expert sa paghinto ng yung sa hindi pagsabog ng bomba. Yung criminalist naman, sila naman yung sa nagkakandak sa mga physical evidence. Yung engineer naman sa mga buildings. For example, ang crime scene sa buildings. Kunwari yung building na yun, ginagawa pa lang. Sila yung kailangan na specialist na kukunin ng SOCO team para makatulong sa pagkandak ng investigation. Yung entomologist naman, for example, ang ikinamatay nung tao or sa crime scene, ang makikita nila is insect bite or yung pagkamatay nila is caused by the insect. Yung medical examiner, ito yung laging ito yung always related na makikita nating kasama ng mga SOCO team. Kasi sila yung nag-examine sa victim or sa may court kung ano yung kinamatay nila. Yung tawag dito is autopsy. Yung odontologist naman is about dental. For example is ang makikita nila, ang mahahanap nila na evidence is bite mark or face injury. Ang specialist na nihingan nila ng tulong is yung odontologist. Tapos last is yung surveyor. Okay na, buddy?
So class, additionally lang po. So according to the information mentioned by Aram in the report, the SOCO officers need an equipment before they will gathered evidence at the crime scene. So what are the difference? What are the different equipment that was used by SOCO before they were entered to the crime scene? So first, gloves, rubber and cotton. Second, box of the filter paper. Third, white cotton sheets. 4, cotton balls and swabs. 5, fingerprint card, data card, and inker. 6, photo data card. 7, black and white latent lifting cards. 8, rolls of lifting tape. 9, complete magna brush kit. 10, complete dusting kit. 11, heavy-duty rubbing lifters. 12, camera with wide angle, normal, and macro lens. 13, arson kit. 14, casting and molding kit. And last, electronic engraver. So classmates, additionally lang po. So dun po sa classification of cases for crime laboratory assistance. So they may also include the different types of cases like murder, arson, rape with homicides, and other heinous crimes. So this code is very important in our life. So it is better to prevent crimes than to punish them. So according to Sarbecaria, so there will enlighten our minds to inform everyone to prevent the committing of crime to avoid punishment. So yun lang po, sir. Yun lang po, classmates. Maraming salamat po.